Good morning, everybody. I'm Larry Weishuhn. If you enjoy real-world hunting and fishing talk, you're really going to enjoy listening to my good friend, Luke Clayton, and his guest for the next hour.
This is David Fox, and welcome to Outdoors with Luke Clayton and Friends. Luke has been a recognized outdoors writer for the past 3 decades and writes for a host of outdoor publications. Luke pens a weekly newspaper outdoors column that appears in over 40 Texas newspapers. Luke is on the pro staff of Pyramyd Air, your one-stop shop for everything air gun related. Smokin Tex electric smokers and AGM Global Vision, maker of an awesome line of thermal hunting scopes and spotters. Feel free to contact Luke through his website, catfishradio.org. Now let's join Luke and his guests for this week's show.
Well, as I always say, thank you guys for that nice introduction. And we do have Mr. Larry Weishuhn standing by, ready to talk about, well, deer and who knows what else. How are you, Larry?
Look, I'm doing absolutely fantastic. I'll tell you what, I understand you put that Mossberg, which is made here in Texas, to good use here not too very long ago. And of course, we're so fortunate. We've got some great sponsors beyond all that as well, too, with DSC, Conservation, Education, Advocacy, Hornady, Accurate, Deadly, Dependable, Stealth Vision, actually they're headquartered there in Crockett, Texas.
Yep.
Finest optics available anywhere as far as I'm concerned. Then Vineyard Max, it makes the feeders and the deer, the bait, and also sells my Weishuhn whitetail knives, and they're there from Nacogdoches. And then of course we got Taurus, the handguns that I really enjoy shooting, the Raging Hunter, and I'm going to put those to good use here before too very long. We've got a couple of hog hunts coming up, but you mentioned deer. You know, we're into at beginning stages of fawns hitting the ground right now. The earliest, my little place is in Colorado County, which is just west of Houston. Oh, used to be about 80 miles. Now it's probably about 40 miles.
Yeah.
and the earliest I've ever seen a fawn there was May the 3rd. But our southern listing area, I'm sure there's some fawns on the ground, and it won't be long until that country over around Eastland County and they're around Mineral Wells and all those areas, the central kind of part of the state, the northern part of the state, and the northeastern part of the state will have fawns on the ground as well, too.
It's right around the corner, Larry. Yeah, we're going to get Bill Carey. You mentioned the Mossberg shotgun. Bill's going to be with us coming up. I've got him scheduled, Bill Carey. And
fantastic.
We're going to talk all about a very fun, one of the turkey hunts that'll go down in my memory banks the rest of my life. But that I don't have the Mossberg turkey gun, but I kind of kid about that. It's one of the 940 semi-auto shotguns. It's a turkey gun. It just doesn't have the camo on it. It doesn't have the camo on it, but it's the black model, but they work just as well. That is one awesome auto-loading shotgun. I mean, versatile. You can do a lot of stuff with it, but I want to brag on that, on the Mossberg shotgun a little bit. And so, yeah, Larry, and you know, the deer, thank goodness where I live up southeast of Dallas, we've had a lot of rain. We've got a lot of vegetation on the ground right now. And I know that's going to be important for not only fawn survival, but these turkeys, I would guess some of these hens are probably close to getting on their nest. I mean, to incubate those eggs. So all that ground cover, Larry, that's going to help, isn't it?
It really is, and I got a feeling we got a lot of turkeys on nests in different parts of the state and a few other places. Mm-hmm. You know, really, when you get right down to it, that are already on the nest.
Sure.
And you're right, that ground vegetation is so very important for so many different reasons. Even like with fawns, you know, it hides them real well, and you look at it from the deer aspect, there's all these little weeds coming up, or forbs, if you want to call them that as well, too, that are so nutritious, but they'll hide those fawns. Now, with the turkeys, it's like quail, and unfortunately, in a lot of places, we don't have the quail populations that we used to, but the other thing about that ground vegetation is it's going to create a lot of insects. And those little turkeys, as they start hatching off, and a lot of the other birds, talking about songbirds, my God, there's going to be seeds available. There's going to be all kinds of little grasshoppers available. And those things are so really, really important for those birds. And again, not just for turkeys or quail, but for songbirds as well, too. And that's one of the reasons we manage the habitat for wildlife like we do, where hunting becomes such an important thing to keep those populations, particularly within the game animals and game birds, what that habitat can support. Because when we do that, then everything benefits, not just those game birds, but really the songbirds and the butterflies, and really more importantly, the habitat itself. So rainfall in Texas, we're so dependent upon it. Others, they're a little bit less dependent upon like we are, because they're not in usually a drought situation in Texas. I like to call us a thirsty state that will take water just about any time. But you're right. Right now, with the way that spring is going on, and there have been good rains in a lot of different places, migration, it's set up really, really well to benefit all those little critters that are coming up and be coming on right within the next, say 2 months or so.
You bet. It's kind of makes me think of where I live. I live on 4 acres, just it's a lot of yard, but out to mow, but it could be, but Larry, I mean, you don't have to have a whole lot of land to help to be beneficial to wildlife, and I know this for a fact because on my ground out here, I've left probably, I don't know, a natural wooded area, probably 40 yards wide, all the way down one side and down the back of it. And there's all kinds. I mean, I see, we got raccoons, possums, squirrels, skunks, and it's got a benefit really, the butterflies and all that, because there's all kind of weeds and flowers and stuff growing out there. And I've had people say, well, Luke, you could come in here and clear all this out, and you got these big oaks back in there, that acorn trees too, hard mast is out there too. You clear all that out. Wouldn't that be nice? And I'd say, no, it wouldn't.
No.
I want it like that. People think you're just neglecting your property, but no, it's really just kind of a natural strip that I've got, and it connects to another strip of woods that connects to another strip that connects to 15,000 acre ranch. So people can, in small areas like that. I'm gonna try to get Terry Slavens on, to talk later in this show, to talk about bees, and I know your daughter is she loves the beekeeping and all.
Absolutely. You mentioned all that as well. And I tell people, I said, if you own a yard, or even if you live in a high-rise apartment and you've got a flower pot sitting out where bees and everything else are butterflies and you're a wildlife influencer. And so to me, all of us can be that way and have an influence in terms of making sure that there's sufficient amount of food and cover available for all different kinds of wildlife. So, I appreciate what you're doing. There's that opportunity to create, if you do own land, to do it under a wildlife evaluation. My little property is set up that way to where we try to bring back the habitat that we had there at one time. So, there's so many little things that can be done. I do want to remind people coming up, excuse me, we're talking about the weeds and all the pollen and stuff.
It's got you.
But we got 2 great events coming up this summer that people need to be aware of. That's the 40th anniversary of the Texas Wildlife Association, and that convention will take place in the San Antonio at the JW Marriott, and they can learn more about that by going to www.texas-wildlife.org. And then, of course, I'm very involved with DSC and of course, was and still am with TWA, or Texas Wildlife Association. But we got a summer show coming to Dallas. It'll be at the Gaylord Texan Resort there in Grapevine, and it'll be the week after. So that's the 17th of July through the 19th. and there are going to be all kinds of things going on there. It's going to be like a mini DSC show. So we're going to be able to bring DSC back for a summertime show, and I really want to invite people to go there and learn all they can, and they can learn more about how to become involved and what they can do, and a little bit more about the activities there by going to biggame.org, or also the DSC Foundation website, which is dscf.org. So I got a feeling you're going to be at least at one of those. I know you're going to be in the one in Dallas for a little bit. So,
yeah, you bet.
I can't wait. That's going to be an absolutely fantastic show. I had a meeting, and I think we're pretty much sold out of booths. So, or we are sold out probably at this point. So, going to be a great show, and a little bit of everything for everybody, and kind of like the DSC convention normally is in Dallas, just on a kind of a smaller scale.
That's what I was going to ask you, Larry. Since the convention is now in Atlanta, it was last year, and it will be this coming convention, yes, I guess, in January in Atlanta.
Well, actually, in February.
February?
Yeah. It'll be in February this coming year.
Okay. Well, this will be, that was my question. Will this be like a mini convention, a lot of booths and that kind of thing?
Absolutely. I can't remember what I'm saying. I want to say something like 400 and something booths. Really a whole lot of things going on there. Because we had to leave Dallas because of the K. Bailey Hutchison Center being torn down to be rebuilt, actually, but and not big enough to let us do what we need to do. We decided to have that show there at the Gaylord in July, and it's going to be an absolutely great show, very much similar in so many different ways to what the DSC convention has been every year there in January, but just on a smaller scale, and all kinds of great activities going on, and really look forward to seeing a whole lot of folks out there as well too.
Oh, I want to be there. I will be there. That's good, and I'm guessing some people that maybe couldn't travel to Atlanta will probably say, hey, wait a minute, they'll take advantage of that, and they'll be right here. Yeah, I bet that.
Absolutely. And, of course, we had such bad weather, and they nearly shut the city down during the convention in January, and so people just couldn't get there, unfortunately. And so that's not going to be the case when we're there at the Gaylord.
That's a good deal. Well, Larry, thanks for being with us, like always. And I look forward, later this month, we have a topwater striper trip with Striper Express with Bill Carey. Jeff Rice will be with us, and we'll film a segment of A Sportsman's Life. I want to invite people to watch A Sportsman's Life on Carbon TV for sure. Just you can download it on your Roku or whatever, but on your smartphone, just CarbonTV.com, and you can watch A Sportsman's Life. It's easy to find on YouTube. Just search it out. But we're going to film a show there. Recently, the turkey hunt that I did with Bill Carey is also on right now. Maybe you'd get a kick. I think folks would get a kick out of watching that one. And so that's something else we do every week, Larry. We're that's as much fun as the radio, almost.
It is, and I'll be up on the Choctaw with the Cotton family, with Mr. Edgar and David.
That's right.
Here very shortly, and within probably in the next several days.
Yeah.
And while they're there, I'm going to try to film a little bit of their turkey hunt.
Oh, I want to see it.
And the fishing up there is phenomenal, too. So I'm planning on doing a little fishing while they're there. We'll have that show coming from our friends up there at the Choctaw, and particularly with David and Edgar.
You bet, real soon, too. Well, thanks for being with us, Larry, and next week we'll get with everybody and have some more fun. What do you say?
I can't wait.
Well, friends, Mr. Larry Weishuhn is going to tell you about the finest hunting optics that we have ever found.
Luke, these are called Stealth Vision. They come from Crockett, Texas. Dr. John McCall developed them. They're 34-millimeter tubes as opposed to the narrower tubes, so more light transmission. They have a little green light that comes on. That scope is level because that's when you want to pull the trigger. They have an optional lighted reticle as well, too, and a whole lot of other products, and folks can learn more about them by going to stealthvision.com.
Folks, I want to introduce you to Vineyard Max. Now, this is an awesome deer attractant, a food attractant that's made with hammer-milled grape skin, dried hammer-milled grape skins. It has a mixture of rice bran and also corn chops. Very effective. Deer can smell the scent of grapes from a long way, and it brings them in. I've used it in West Texas out with Larry Weishuhn, and we were out there where deer are not even exposed to grapes, and they came right in. Also, Vineyard Max has a very good line of game and fish feeders. Check them out online, vineyardmax.net. Friends, I want to tell you about an awesome camping destination, Wind Point Park on Lake Tawakoni. It's over on the far east side, kind of the northeast side of the lake. It's a pristine park. You can go there and view, I think they estimated a couple of hundred deer on that couple of hundred acres there. Cabins, beautiful RV park, fishing piers, docks. It's got everything you'd want in an outdoor destination. Check them out online at windpointparktx.com. Folks, this segment is made possible by Smokin Tex electric smokers that I've been using a long, long time, CatfishPro, catfishing baits and catfish supplies, Ultrimatic Feeders, and AGM Global Vision, maker of the spotters and thermal scopes that I hunt with. And, folks, our guest is Mr. Bill Carey, a longtime friend of mine of about 4 decades, honestly. I was up at Bill's, Texas. You know, Bill started Striper Express. He and Chris, his son, run Striper Express guide service. Been doing it for 41 years, I'm guessing. But I went turkey hunting up at Bill's place. That's what we're going to talk about, Bill. Thank you, buddy, for being with us.
Good morning, Luke, and all y'all out in radio land.
I want to tell you something, and this is from the heart. This is a fact. I've hunted turkeys a long time. I've hunted turkeys for years. I don't know how many years, but a bunch of years. I've killed birds in the Panhandle. I hunted them they even killed an eastern bird in East Texas and all over the place. Cedar Breaks, I've been there and done that. I've never had more fun than this week with you hunting turkeys on your spot. We had a plan, and that plan came to fruition perfectly, didn't it, Bill? You know?
Yes, sir. We said we were going to live off the land, and we did. It was a blast. Oh, man, I had a lot of fun.
I know you did, and I did too. Our plan, folks, was for me to get up. I have to fight the Dallas traffic because I live southeast of Dallas and Bill is north. So I left real early. Traffic was not a problem. I was up there about 7:15. Not at daylight, but you don't need to be there at daylight when you're hunting turkeys, contrary to what some people say, but that's true. So met Bill, and our plan, we had all this planned out, was for me to bring this little rocket stove, little deal, that is a cooking machine, and it cooks on little twigs, and it blows like a blowtorch. Anyway, it was to have it in the truck. I had it. I had everything. We didn't know if we were going to fry fish, blacken fish, cook turkey. We just knew we were going to eat off the land. Bill's got a pond, and we were going to fish the pond, which we did. So I was ready to cook. I had most everything, and there's a field back behind the pond, and so and there's a pond. The dam is behind the pond from where you drive up. Bill, boy, my blood was pumping. When we drove up, you said, look at that. There was a Jake up on the top of that pond, across the pond, wasn't it?
Yeah, walking right across the dam. Luke and I both squat down, and he got his call out. Every time he'd strike that call, he'd gobble and walk. Strike that call, gobble, and walk. It was a blast. It was a good start.
It was a good start to a great day. And I just knew then that, hey, the turkeys, sometimes turkeys, even jakes, that's the year-old birds, sometimes they won't gobble. I mean, and then some days they are red hot. Well, that was an omen of what was going to happen that day. That turkey was gobbling his head off. And my ears are not quite as good as yours, Bill, and maybe yours are not the best. I don't know, but you heard some turkeys that I couldn't hear back on your field that was back down in the woods back there, and so so then you went kick back and you was getting all the fishing gear ready because we did some bass fishing in the pond, but I thought, well, I'm good for the day. I'll call Bill if I shoot a bird. Or, I thought maybe he can hear me shoot, and sure enough he did. But I got there, I wanted that Jake, if I could have got that Jake first thing in the morning, I'd have shot, because that's turkey meat. That was dinner, that was part of our lunch, But that didn't happen. That Jake kept on trotting. But I got back there on the pond side of your creek, the deep creek, a field back there that you took me to and showed me. And I set Henrietta, who's my tried and true hen decoy, set her out, very visible on some high ground. Turkey could have seen her from a long ways. And I got in some real tight cover, Bill. So there's a cedar there, and I got back up in that cedar, broke a few branches off so I could see Henrietta, my decoy, and I just settled in, and I sat there. Well, I called, and at first there was a response right away from that other field. I guess it's going to be 300 or 400 yards away. It's on the other side, way down, across the creek. And so a gobbler was sounding off. He could hear that. I was striking that box call pretty loud, and he could hear that hen yelp, no problem. Well, and then the turkeys just went silent. And I thought, wait a minute, that gobbler may be en route, because it would have took him a while to get to me. He had to cross the creek and up the hill and all that. So no sound, no gobbling at all. And then I heard another faint call. Well, by then I was to the point I was thinking I ought to get up and go to the turkeys. That's one way to do it, run and gun. Then I thought about my friend Bob Hood, the late Bob Hood, the outdoor writer for the Fort Worth paper, who I've hunted with so much. He is saying patience kills more turkeys than anything. I could almost hear Bob saying that. And I said, nope, keep your tail right here under this cedar tree. It's not time to move yet. Be patient. Okay, so I sat there. Now, here's what was exciting, Bill. I'm looking at Henrietta, the decoy out there in front, probably, 30 yards max from me at the max, 25 probably. And I'm watching. I'm figuring, well, maybe those turkeys will come across that creek and then come out in the field. Well, I sat there, and I knew to be still. Just you have to, you don't know where the turkey's going to really come from. Well, the cotton-picking big gobbler, I'm talking maybe the heaviest Rio Grande turkey I've ever killed. I wish I could have weighed him, because I think he weighed 25 pounds, honestly.
He was a big one.
He was a big one. Well, it was 11-inch beard. Anyway, I heard something in the leaves. Now, my hearing is not what it used to be, but I could hear this because it was close. It was a matter of like 25 feet from me, not yards, but feet. I looked over there, and I saw that gobbler walking real between two big trees. I could see that big old beard dangling down, and he was with another gobbler that I really couldn't get a view of. I saw the turkey, but I couldn't see what kind of beard. He couldn't have been any bigger than the one I shot. But so then I've got the shotgun. I'm using a Mossberg, the 940, not the turkey gun, but it is a turkey gun. It's the black model, and you can use it for anything. But that's the gun I was using at Mossberg. So I had it pointed in the direction I expected the turkeys to be in the field. Well, this bird was hard off to my right, Bill, and almost kind of behind me. And I just turned my head, and I had a face mask on, and I was well concealed. And the turkey didn't see me moving. And so there was two of them. So the other one kind of got out of sight behind some brush. And this one, when he walked and stuck his head behind a tree, I just kind of slid around with that shotgun and had it ready. Well, I expected, as luck would have it, I expected him to keep on going to that field. Well, he didn't. He turned around and made the mistake of just taking a step or two behind that tree. And it was a close shot. I mean, it was so close that you worry about your pattern only being about 4 inches, pattern on that shotgun, but it made a good shot, and it was. By the time I slung him over the shoulder and grabbed Henrietta, my decoy, and took a few pictures, and by the time I got that bird packed back up to the camp or to the pond, I was ready to lay him down, Bill. That was a heavy turkey, you know. It was. So you tell a little bit more of what happened. We got back and fished a little bit, right? Caught a couple of fish. Then we went on to turkey cooking, right?
Oh yeah, and folks, Luke just told you play by play that we're talking 20, maybe 30 minutes total out there in the field. He was. I was sitting up here at the house on my back deck, and I heard kaboom, and it wasn't 20. I know it wasn't 30 minutes. So everything worked out fine, and we caught one bass and missed a couple more. And Luke goes, "What would you think of turkey nuggets?" I went, "Oh, buddy."
That's it. Yep. So then I thought, wait a minute. Now I usually have everything I need, but I was not planning on the turkey nuggets. And I thought, wait a minute. Let me butcher this bird. We had everything we needed, folks. Cold, fresh water in a 5-gallon clean bucket and everything you need to butcher a turkey. And I said, let me go to work with this knife and butcher this thing, clean the meat up really well. And I keep the thighs and the legs, and I make fajitas out of them. I wrap those, I smoke them, get them a good smoke flavor, and put olive oil on them and wrap them in foil and let them cook for 4 or 5 hours, and then you can pull that meat off the bone, that dark meat, and make fajitas out of it. It's great, but that comes later. Those legs and thighs are now in the freezer, frozen. So I took the 2 breast halves. That's the way I butcher a turkey: 2 breast halves, 2 thighs, and 2 drumsticks. That's all the meat there is on a turkey, honestly.
Right.
You know, so I get that, and got a real good place to work out there to butcher it. And you pulled up, Bill, with a cutting board and some. I told you, I said, do you have any flour, Bill? You did, and so because we were planning on blackening. We could have blackened this, but that chicken fried nuggets, I thought that's it, man. We got to do that. So anyway, long story short, I took the fillet knife and I started cutting little chicken nuggets about. Not very big, just like or turkey nuggets, about like you would chicken nuggets, like you'd buy at a restaurant somewhere, you know. But little turkey planks, we'll call them. And you had some good Cajun seasoning. I seasoned those up really well with that first, and then rolled them in the flour. And we fired that little rocket stove up, and that was that was cool. The whole thing fits in a 5-gallon bucket, folks. This rocket stove, it's round. And had that thing going, and we were frying turkey meat in a matter of 10 minutes, weren't we, Bill?
Oh, yeah, and that stove is something else. Folks, you'll have to, if you haven't heard of the rocket stove, it was new to me here when Luke mentioned it a month ago, and I looked him up, and Luke calls it a vortex. It's supercharged. The way it draws air makes it hotter, faster, and they say use twigs about the size of your finger, and we did. Yep. It's amazing.
And you'd look under there. What impressed me, once we got that oil hot, didn't have to worry about it. It stayed hot. I just feed those little twigs in there. Anyway, that thing's going to be part of my outdoor cooking gear from now. Oh, could we have put a propane burner? Yeah, we could have done that, but it's a whole lot more fun doing that. So a good neighbor of mine, Mr. Phillip over there, had brought some good camp beans he cooked. I hear you crow, Bill. Say hello to the crow for me, would you?
There you go.
Yeah.
Anyway, she's out here talking.
You bet. So we're almost out of time, but we had camp beans and turkey nuggets and a wonderful and cornbread. That's right. Okay. The Topwater Bite is on right now. 1st of May, it brings it in. They started a little bit earlier, Bill tells me. There's that crow. I love that crow. He's part of our show. And so go up and fish with Bill, striperexpress.com, and maybe Bill can bring his crow with him and say hello. Bill, give the number real quick for Striper Express.
All right, folks, you can call us at 903-786-4477. That's 903-786-4477.
Folks, I want to tell you about an awesome destination for camping, just a getaway place, some very good fishing up on the upper end of Lake Livingston. It's River Rat Resort. You can go online to riverratresort.com. Check it all out. It's an awesome website there, but there's RV sites for RVs. There's tent camping right on the river, cabins there. It is a beautiful park. And I fished down in that area for many, many years. I probably first started fishing there 30 years ago. But you can fish the river. Lake Livingston is a well-known fishing lake. If you don't like to fish, which I bet you do, but if you don't, it's a great place just to get away from the hustle bustle of the big city. You can call 936-277-5495. That's 936-277-5495 and make reservations. But first, go online there to riverratresort.com. Check it out. I want to tell you about a one-stop shop for everything related to game feeders and fish feeders, Ultrimatic Feeders. I've been using components and feeders from Ultrimatic Feeders for 20-something years, I guess. They have the remote, which you can remotely activate your feeder with, the timer, which is the most simple timer that I've ever found on a game feeder. And then the eliminator. Check these out. They are worked on actually on centrifugal force, and they seal off the corn supply so coons and squirrels can't get to the corn. Check them out. Ultrimatic Feeders, you could go online to ultrimaticfeeders.com. Folks, let's talk a little outdoor cooking. Let me tell you about an electric smoker that I've been using for 15 years, I guess. Smokin Tex electric smokers. If you're tired of staying up all night keeping that wood fire burning when you're barbecuing, give Smokin Tex a try. They're made to last a lifetime. You can check them out at smokintex.com. That's SMOKINTEX.com. For seasonings, anything to do with outdoor cooking, all kind of jerky seasonings, sausage seasonings, Butcher Packer Supply. That's butcherpackersupply.com. I think the website is butcher-packer.com. Friends, this segment is made possible by Platinum Cadillac and Chevrolet in Terrell, Texas. Stop by and visit with my buddy, Mr. Justin Rudd, and his team of experts, and let them put you in a new Chevy pickup or a Cadillac or whatever you might be in the market for. Also, the Choctaw Hunting Lodge up in southeast Oklahoma. Check them out at ChoctawHuntingLodge.com. Also made possible by Pyramyd Air, your one-stop shop for everything airgun related. Well, friends, let's shift gears and let's talk about bees. And more specifically, let's talk about how you can use bees as a tax exemption. Now, our guest is a biologist, wildlife biologist with Plateau Land and Wildlife Management, Tucker Slack. Tucker's been with us before, and we touched on a lot of topics, but I thought it would be interesting. I know a lot of my, not a lot, but 3 or 4 people, friends of mine, have exemptions on their wildlife, their taxes, because of bees. Tucker, let's talk some bees. What do you say, buddy? Thank you for being here, man.
Oh, yes, sir. Thank you for having me. The beekeeping is something that I am somewhat familiar with, just because there's been a lot of recent changes, and so now it's actually very structured, and we run into that from time to time, particularly filing folks their application paperwork to get beekeeping instilled on the property.
Yep. Well, you were telling me off the air, Tucker, that there's a structured amount of land. Like I live on I really wouldn't even qualify, not quite 5 acres, a little less than 5 acres, but it can be utilized on smaller tracts. Is that right?
Yes, sir, that's correct. So it needs to be between 5 is the minimum, up to 20 acres. So anything between 5 and 20. So for instance, if you had a 6-acre property that you lived on, they likely would have an acre pulled out for your residence. Then you'd have 5 acres of raw land that you could implement the beekeeping on.
I got you. But you couldn't, you'd have to own, I guess that's a real fine line, but if you had 5 acres, part of it would be a home, a house. So they would take that out of it. you need?
Yes, sir. They generally do, and that 1 acre is normally the standard for most of them. I think there's some legal ways that if you could go down to a half acre, but depending on the footprint of the home itself.
Right.
But I have seen some folks go in, depending on the county, it's kind of variable as to what they will and won't allow. Some similar to other agricultural practices where you've got several adjacent property owners using their properties together to implement beekeeping. I've seen that happen on even some smaller acreages where it might be 2 or 3 acres each person has, but when you combine it together, you can sometimes get them to allow it on that as well.
Like a co-op of a sort.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, that would work. Where I live, it's a lot of homes, a lot of lots, properties from 2 to 15, 20 acres, I'd say 5 acre tracts, there's probably more of those than anything. So feasibly, a person could get a couple of neighbors to go together and do a joint thing on that, possibly.
Potentially, yes, sir. And I'll say we run into it a lot because we talk to a lot of folks who are trying to reestablish ag after the properties have been decreased in size to some extent. And so if you get, depending on where you are, you may fall below their minimum acreage requirement for hay or for grazing cattle.
Yeah.
And so the beekeeping is a way that you can get the ag valuation back on the property. Now, that being said, there are also different ways that they value these agricultural lands. So rather than and I think we talked about this before, the market value versus the productivity value. And so beekeeping has a little bit higher productivity value because the product is essentially honey if you're using honeybees. And so you stand to make more per acre raising honeybees than you would raising cattle or hay. And so your valuation would maybe be $300 an acre versus the 80 to 100 that's pretty standard for hay and cattle. So the value is a little bit higher, but it's still not nearly as high as your market values.
Yep, and we were talking a little bit about the different types of bees. Some of the that comes into play also, doesn't it?
Yes, sir. It definitely can. So there's some the language in there is a little bit ambiguous about producing a commodity, particularly when it's talking about bees, and then it says or pollination. And so they use bees. They particularly have used honeybees to pollinate plants. The almond orchards, and they ship these 18-wheeler loads of bees all around the country for pollinating purposes. But with that language, there's also native bees that you can, once again, depending on the county, but I know that a few appraisal districts allow for you to use the native bee boxes for the pollinator bees, the solitary bees or mason bees or leafcutter bees. There's a few different solitary bees that you can promote with a nesting structure. It's a little different, but those bees are sometimes pollinate several hundred times as many plants as the European honeybee, and they're native. And so I was doing some research recently because I was just interested in learning a lot more about bees, and there are over 250 species of native bee in Texas alone. And so just a tremendous wealth of insects that I never had even known about.
Folks, we're visiting with Tucker Slack, and he's with Plateau Land and Wildlife Management, and that he and his company are a storehouse of knowledge. Before we get Tucker off, we're going to connect you with Plateau Land and Wildlife Management bees are just one little. We couldn't start to talk about all the things that y'all are involved with, Tucker, but the bees is a pretty good chunk of it. I've got you've heard of the African. I've read about the aggressive African bee. About 5 years ago, on this little place where I live, and lots of trees, a lot of brush around the perimeter, I kind of left a little mini wildlife habitat in places, But we had some bees move in late summer, and I thought I went out. I happened to went out and got a little bit too close to them, and these were aggressive bees. Have you ever heard of those African bees or anything like that, just out of curiosity?
Yes, sir. I've heard about the Africanized honeybees. They're many years ago, they were trapped. You'd see these little green boxes in the trees. They were trapping them, trying to learn about them. And I don't know that much, but I know there's some way you can distinguish besides being
bitten,
many times more aggressive, their bodies are longer or something. But I haven't heard much about them in recent times, but I know that they've been an issue for a lot of years.
Those bees, I don't want them anywhere near me. They were. My dad was an amateur bee. There was a wild cherry tree up in northeast Texas on our farm. It must have been an old tree. Wild cherries, and most people don't even know that they're available around, but there are a few. And it had a hive that come up, and I remember he had called a smudge pot, and he didn't worry about getting stung. I don't know what he knew that I don't know, but he would take that pot and smudge the smoke and come out of there with all kind of honey. I thought, he must have learned something that way back in his life that he never told me about. But the wild bees, I mean, they're gonna be wild hives all over the woods. I've run into them many times, and I bet you have too. But that's, and people have learned how to cultivate that. I mean, a bee to me is still a wild critter. I guess some of the ones that are used for honey are more docile or tamer, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know that my understanding on the smoke is it calms the bees or disorients the bees in some regard to where you don't have to get stung as much. But I think they also can sense people that are real excited or real nervous. I think certain insects can key off on that kind of stuff.
That's me, one of those African honeybees, or the whatever kind of bees they are. Well, that's interesting. And Tucker, I think it would be an injustice not to tell more about plateau land and wildlife management. But, it's safe to, I know a good bit about what you do. I've been to the website and spent some time there too. But, anything to do with land management and wildlife management, if you want to get your property in a managed lands permit through the state, I mean, the state, I say all of this, but much of this stuff can be done through the state biologists, but I've had some dealings with that. Those are great folks and knowledgeable, but they have a heavy workload. I do know that. And your company can kind of, do it. In other words, devote time to, say, working up a wildlife management plan or whatever. Yeah, that's what you do, and you can contract with people to do that, right?
Yes, sir. That's a big part of what we do. We do general consulting for just information for wildlife management as well. I think a big part of why we exist is because we can do paperwork and forms as well. Applications. There's enough at stake to make it worth getting it right. And so folks a lot of times will engage us to assist them even with agriculture applications of any nature, or the wildlife management plans is predominantly what we do. And so it works really well. We do all sorts of turnkey services. We can help you as much or as little as you need. But I think there is real value in having someone familiar with the paperwork side of it, and the filing and the timelines and windows, and just in general, when you're starting out, it's nice to get involved with someone who can educate and assist and make sure that you know what you've gotten into, and kind of keep their eyes open so that things get filed on time, or even answer questions. Sometimes folks call us with a letter they've gotten from the appraisal district, and it's not very clear what they want, what they're asking for, what they're requesting. And so we can usually help figure those kind of things out and get the people taken care of.
Well, it's an awesome resource. It really is. Tucker, tell folks how to go to the website. And I will say this, anything that you've got land-wise, land management, wildlife, these folks, that's what they do. So how do they learn more about it? That'd be a good.
Yes, sir. You go to www.plateauwildlife.com. There's actually one of the first things I think that pops up is do I qualify? And you can put your property information in there to see if it qualifies for wildlife management if you have an interest in it. Essentially, it's just first got to be a current ag value, ag valuation on it to make it eligible. And anyway, so that's a good resource for all sorts of information. You can look at products and services, and even some frequently asked questions that people have about this stuff. There's a page where you can just go get some of the more common questions and some answers to those as well.
You bet. I read the page, and I did. It answered a couple of things I was curious about. Well, Tucker, thanks again, and we'll come up with the way I like to do it. It's such a broad spectrum that we could spend hours talking about all the things that your company does, but pick out interest. I thought the bees, for instance, would be interesting for a lot of people, and we'll come up with another topic and get you back. How about that?
That sounds great. I'm always happy to help and enjoy visiting with you, and I hope it's helpful to get information into the hands of your listeners for sure.
Well, it definitely is, and thanks again. For about the past decade, I've been hunting editor for Airgun Hobbyist magazine. I think the only magazine devoted strictly to airgun shooting and hunting in the country. Well, in that length of time, I've learned quite a bit about big bore air guns and smaller calibers too. A spot to go to that if you're interested in air guns, you need to know about Pyramyd Air. The website is PYRAMYD, PyramydAir.com. They have anything and everything you need, from the guns themselves, the big bores or the smaller calibers, to the accessories. Just remember PyramydAir.com, and there's a number when you get on the website if you need to call and talk to somebody. Give them a buzz, and they can fill you in on little details that you might need to know about shooting or hunting with big bore air guns. While you're on the website there, I'd like you to check out the big bore air gun that I've done a great deal of hunting with. It's the Seneca Dragon Claw, 50 caliber, pressures up to 3,000 psi, and it looks like a conventional rifle. Wooden stock. I think you'll like the appearance, and I know you'll like the performance. It shoots not only bullets, but also air bolts as well, tipped with a broadhead. Check it out. It's the Seneca Dragon Claw.
The snowflakes fall as winter comes, and time just seems to fly.
Friends, this segment is brought to us by CVA Muzzleloaders. In my opinion, the very best muzzleloaders in the world, the ones that I shoot. You can check them out online, CVA.com. AGM Global Vision, maker of the Rattler and the Adder that I use, you can check them out online too, agmglobalvision.com. Kuby's Wild Game Processing and Kuby's Restaurant in Dallas, and Vineyard Max, maker of some awesome deer attractant and some very fine game feeders and fish feeders, located down in Nacogdoches, Texas. Check them out at vineyardmax.net. Well, friends, this is Luke, and I want to thank you, all of you, for tuning in this morning. I've thoroughly enjoyed today's show, as I always do. Larry Weishuhn and I kick things off every week in Campfire Talk, and we have an absolute ball. We've been doing this together every week for 18 and a half years now on Catfish Radio. And it's kind of, I know a lot of you would probably get a kick out of how we prepare for a segment, but usually it begins with a little conversation. Luke, what do you want to talk about today? Or Larry, you got any good ideas? And we'll probably come up with something. But when we start talking, that topic may be pushed on the backside. We may talk about a whole different subject. But it's a lot of fun, and it unfolds just the way I want things to do here on Catfish Radio. Impromptu talk with a bunch of outdoor folks that love the outdoors. We don't try to be Paul Harvey or a news show. We just talk about things that I think that are important to people that hunt and fish. Bill Carey came up in segment 2 with us this week. Bill and I talking about a recent turkey hunt that was so much fun, and I hope that when you listen to it, you can, in a small way, feel like you were right out there with us, you know. And then Mr. Tucker Slack, I'd like to get Tucker on. He gives a lot of real good information. And, you know, bees this week, I mean, you can turn a small property into a tax exemption in some situations if you know who to call. And that would be Mr. Tucker and his organization. They can help you a lot with tax matters. Now, let's shift gears a little bit. And I have time to talk hogs with you. All my buddies and people I hunt with, they'll tell you, well, you don't have to talk to old Luke very long, and he's going to push the subject of hunting wild hogs, and I do. I love to hunt hogs, and in a way, I kind of hunt hogs as seriously as some people hunt deer. Of course, I hunt deer also, but Patterning hogs. I recently did an article for Fur Fish and Game magazine on, I think the title may wind up something like "Putting Hogs in Your Back Pocket" or something, but it's all about baiting hogs, getting hogs to go where you want them to. And the fun to me of hog hunting is patterning hogs. Some people say you cannot pattern hogs, and I say malarkey. You can. Well, not like deer where a feeder's gonna go off and they're gonna come running every time. But you can pattern hogs. Now, if you're a run and gun hunter with an AR, that's not what I do. I don't knock that at all. I've done some of it. It's a lot of fun. Where you're out on at night with thermal. I use a thermal. AGM Global Vision thermals is what I hunt with. But I'm hunting one hog. I'm not going out on the field and running, gunning, shooting, running hogs and all that. That's just not what I do. And it's like I say, this is not a knock on folks that do, because that probably is the most popular way to shoot hogs. I won't say hunt them. I like to hunt hogs. And the way I do it, corn, if a hog in Germany can smell a kernel of corn 3 feet under the ground, or a truffle, they use trained hogs to find truffles. If he can find truffle 3 feet under the ground, he can find corn on top of the ground. But, the whole trick is hogs usually, unless they're going cross country, let's say, heading way off, on a move, they use the same trails. And their trails are very easy to define. You can I like to, when I'm scouting a new place to set up to hunt hogs, to maybe put a feeder out or something, I'll go the perimeter fences, and they will find a weak spot in that fence, or they'll create a weak spot. They'll go under the fence. And there you can find their trail. It's just very obvious. And I covered all this in my article for Fur Fish and Game magazine. But so that's how I begin hunt or finding hogs. I'll find their trails, and usually there'll be several trails. Now, say I've got a spot I want to set up. I hunt off the ground a lot, and most of your hogs are going to be killed, I think all of you will agree, from 30 minutes before dark till after dark. But that period, say 30 minutes before dark till a couple of hours after dark, I do use my thermal. But I've got it set up on a 223, a little bolt action, CVA, I think it's a VH, Varmint Hunter. That's what it's called, CVA Varmint Hunter, and 223. That's what I hunt hogs with. Now, I'm not shooting hogs at 100 yards running across the field. I'm shooting one at a time. If I can get two, that's good. But usually I get them baited in, and I'll pick out one that I want to eat, and I'll shoot it. And I happen to live real close to some excellent hog hunting. I mean, half a mile from my house, I've got some feeders out, and 1 mile from my house is a red hot spot to hunt hogs. So here was the I want to impart on you here. If you want to put hogs in a certain spot, in other words, say there's a little opening in the woods where you'd like to put the hogs and start hunting them. Here's what I do. I find the trails, and they're easy to define, and usually I'll find a couple of trails or three. Well, if you just set up in a spot and hope to catch those hogs that night on that trail, you may not be successful. They may use one of the other trails. But once I know where the trails are, I find where I want to hunt. Say a little spot in the woods, a little opening or whatever, or, a junction where a creek bottom opens up or something. I find where I want to hunt. And I think about proximity to my truck, how I'm going to get the meat out of there. I think about all that stuff rather than just going out in the middle of the woods and say, here's where I'm going to hunt. I make sure I make it as easy as I can on myself, put it that way. So then I will locate these trails, and then on the trail I'll put out a good bit of bait. Now I use, you can use anything. Corn works just fine once the hogs smell it. They'll be on it. Vineyard Max is a Vineyard Max deer attractant. It's got ground up grape hulls, hammer mill grape hulls, rice bran, and corn chops in it. It's what I usually start off with because they can smell those grape hulls from a way off. They can smell corn from a distance too, but my theory is they can smell those grape hulls from a long way. So I will bait a spot there on that trail, and let's just start with one trail, and then I will, give them enough where that'll stop them if they happen to use that trail that night. Pour a good bit out right on the trail, and then sprinkle mixed. I mix it with corn. Actually, is what I do, but the scent of that grapes, they'll pick up on that quick. And then you can use just shell corn or whatever. You might have to sprinkle a little bit of shell corn for 150 yards, but just sprinkle a little bit. I promise you, once they get on that corn trail, they will follow it till it stops. So bait one trail. Find you a well-used hog trail and bait up to where you want to put those hogs from that spot. And then chances are real good you're going to find another spot where hogs have been traveling. You'll see tracks in the mud or rub lines on the mud lines on the saplings, the trees along the trail. Okay, do the same thing there. On the trail itself, bait out, you can just use regular corn, but I do use the Vineyard Max deer attractant because my theory is they can just smell it a lot farther. So bait 1, 2, or 3 of those places, trails that they're traveling. You might have to wear a little boot leather, a little boot leather finding these places, but you'll find them. And bait them all to your hot spot. And at your spot, don't put a feeder up just yet. This is the first scouting that you do. Go ahead and bait it pretty heavily. Put, I don't know, a third of a 5-gallon bucket of corn. Just scatter it around. Put a camera on it. That's what I do. And then monitor that spot. Go back. I like to go back a day or two after and see what's happening. See which trail they're run. If they were on one of the trails that you baited, I promise you those hogs will follow that trail of corn all the way to where you want to hunt them. So the trail camera will tell you what size hogs and how many are coming in. Folks, that's just some tips. If you're a running gunner with an AR and shooting them out on the field, this is not going to apply to you. But if you like to really hunt them like I do, it might be some tips that help you. Thoroughly enjoyed being with everybody. I want y'all to tune in next week. We're going to be right here at the same time, and I'm going to have some fun guests lined up for us to visit with. Folks, that about wraps our show up for this week. I've enjoyed being with you, and I hope you had a good time, too. And, folks, we're also brought to you by the Choctaw Hunting Lodge up in southeast Oklahoma, located about, 45 minutes west of Hugo, Oklahoma, owned by the Choctaw Nation. It's about 45,000 acres of awesome mountain, country, hills, valleys, loaded with game. Lots of eastern turkey, and they do eastern turkey hunts if you're looking for a spot to hunt turkey in the spring. Also, I want to remind you about the Seneca 50 caliber Dragon Claw that shoots bullets and pellets. And by pellets, I'm talking about 200 and 210 grain lead, chunks of lead. It's a big bore air gun that I use. Check out the Seneca Dragon Claw there at PyramydAir.com.